Hello and good evening. I'm Robin Santiago, a lifelong West Hartford resident and a retired dentist.
I'm Kerry Rausch, and I'm also a long-term West Hartford resident. I'm a co-founder of a group called Grassroots Jewish Women of Connecticut. We formed after October 7th. We number about 200 people, and we support Israel. We try to fight anti-Semitism, and we support each other.
That support, Kerry, has been invaluable during this troubled time that we're living through. We all share a deep concern about the alarming rise of anti-Semitism that we're seeing here in West Hartford and around the globe.
So we really want to thank WHCI for letting us come and share some non-biased facts with all of you, and also to let you know how we've been feeling since October 7th in West Hartford.
So please join us in this series, Shadows of Intolerance, Local and Global Perspectives on Anti-Semitism.
Robin, I'm so glad we have this opportunity to come together today to address this issue that's really been troubling us, the rise of Jew hatred here and in the world at large.
I could not agree more, Kerry. What we're seeing is just beyond alarming, and the precipitous rise of anti-Semitism has us very distressed. We look around the world and we see our fellow Jews feeling the same thing.
How are Israelis feeling since October 7th? And the hostages that are still being held in Gaza? We're all so concerned about so many things.
The recent video about the American-Israeli hostage, Aidan Alexander, and the devastating news of the death of Omar Nutra, just imagine how his parents are feeling. And can you believe it's already 424 days? Let us ask our good friend Shahar Azani, a veteran Israeli diplomat and thought leader for Israel and the Jewish people, to share his perspective with us and you, our wonderful viewers. So Shahar, please help us understand how Israelis view this rise in anti-Semitism. How is it affecting them?
Well, first of all, let me say I'm absolutely thrilled to join you, Robin, and you, Kerry, and the entire West Hartford community on this most important dialogue and an opportunity to really speak to the people, as you said, in an unbiased manner, just to listen to some hard facts and truth and hopefully build a bridge of understanding that we all feel that is so needed these days. You mentioned the hostages who are still held in the darkness of Gaza. And as you can notice on my jacket, you have the yellow ribbon, which is a constant memory of the hostages that we carry with us at all times, and the dog tag that reads, "Our heart is still held captive in Gaza." You know, each and every one of these hostages, these faces, these human beings that go beyond the number, 101. It's Omer Notra, whose parents and family and our entire community was hoping that he would still be alive. And upon receiving the devastating news, there was no dry eye left. You know, we all filled with tears and heartache from the looks of Idan Alexander and the way he's being treated by the savagery of Hamas and the suffering that he and so many others are going through. So thank you for taking the time to mention, you know, these important souls, these people. Each and every one of them has a face, has a name, has a family, and they should all be home, not today, yesterday.
There has been a major shift since October 7th, when Israel was attacked by terrorists, and yet Israel was blamed. Here in West Hartford, we used to feel so safe, but now we look around North America, Europe, and we see anti-Semitism. We look at the Jew hunts that happened in Amsterdam, the violent demonstrations in Toronto, all kinds of disturbances, and the hate on social media. Shahar, as a diplomat, you have traveled the world. Can you give us some perspective globally of what's been going on?
Absolutely, Kerry. So first and foremost, I would just want to go back to what Robin had mentioned before about being an Israeli and the sense of anti-Semitism. You know, growing up in Israel, we're all Jews. So growing up in a Jewish state, surrounded by Jews, didn't feel really special. It was just an ordinary thing for all of us to experience. So having had that experience, which is ultimately very unique in the historical perspective of the Jewish people, which has been roaming the world for thousands of years since the exile from Judea by the Roman Empire with the destruction of the Second Temple. And suddenly I'm part of that generation that grew up in Israel as a strong, proud, powerful Jewish state among my peers, among my friends, where a synagogue is an ordinary sight and services and expressing your Jewish faith. So anti-Semitism as such, as it's been recently experienced, has never been part of our life. What mostly has been a part of our life is the animosity that came from hostile countries surrounding Israel and from terrorist organizations who kept on insisting that there will be no peace between the Jewish state and its neighbors, but kept on trying to kill as many Jews as possible. So in a way, that was our version of anti-Semitism. And as a diplomat roaming the world globally, suddenly I've been able to wear these glasses, Kerry and Robin, the glasses of the wandering Jew, your glasses, the Nairobi Jewish community's glasses, the community in London, Kazakhstan, Los Angeles, and New York. And suddenly I've been exposed to this classic, as they call it, type of anti-Semitism, the way I've only read about in the books of history going through middle school and high school. And suddenly there is this discussion about the Jew with all of the characteristics of a Jew, which is something that I've never been used to thinking about or even addressing to be a normal part of modern life. And I think that what we have seen since October 7th is a huge shift. It's not that anti-Semitism didn't exist before. I've been in this field for decades now. And I have seen the rise of anti-Semitism, which was in many cases manifested in the form of anti-Zionism. So you would call out against Israel, but what you would actually mean is you would mean a Jew or the Jewish state as the Jewish people. And all you have to do is take some of those statements that you may encounter in social media and replace the word Israel with the word Jew or Jewish, and you will stare classic anti-Semitism in the face. So that has been something that we have continuously seen over the years in various accusations. Now what happens since October 7th, and the way we see it, since Jewish blood has been all over the place with thousands of, dead Jews just for being Jewish in the towns and villages surrounding Gaza, in the horrible attack that took place, suddenly you see the classic anti-Semitism rearing its ugly head unabashedly. No longer are people hiding behind discussions of apartheid or two-state solution or settlements or refugees. Now the truth stares you in the face. Those people who come out and say the Jews have no right to the land of Israel. Israel is not a legitimate entity. It must be destroyed, eradicated. So think about this for a minute. When you talk about Zionism, or if you want the right of the Jewish people for self-determination, the right for self-determination is one that has been a progressive goal, a progressive cause all over the world. Any people around the world where you talk about, the right for self-determination is a given, but yet only when it comes to the Jews. Only when it comes to the Jews, that right is being contested. And this has been the reality that we've been facing since October 7th.
Wow. So interesting what you say, Shahar. And it's a hard line that we find people to understand the difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. Can you just expand a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Kerry. That's very important. So, like I said before, when you listen to the kind of accusations made against Israel, and let me give you an example. In the 1800s, one of the most famous blood libels against the Jewish communities, especially in Russia and Eastern Europe, but not only there, has been the accusation that Jews supposedly kill Christian children and use their blood for whatever rituals the Jewish people might have. Complete nonsense and ridiculous accusations that come from God knows where, or maybe not God, but the other side. And it wasn't, I believe, more than just a couple of years ago when a Palestinian child went missing in Jerusalem. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib immediately was very quick to tweet and accuse Israel of kidnapping a Palestinian child and killing that child. So, yes, she accused Israel of kidnapping a Palestinian child. And it was later found out, only a few hours later, that that poor child, because of pouring rains in the area of Jerusalem, slid into a pit and tragically lost his life. And the Israeli police found his body and retrieved it to his family. But that's what I'm talking about. When you frame the picture as a classic anti-Semitic narrative against the state of Israel, but what you really mean is the Jews and the Jewish people. This is why you hear a lot of talk about, children, because when you talk about children, it immediately connects to the anti-Semitic libels. And for our viewers, all I'm going to ask you is one very simple thing, just like I said before. When you hear those accusations against Israel, when you listen to some of the ridiculous TikToks out there, which I recommend don't waste your time on, just replace the word Israel with Jews, and you will stare in the face of the anti-Semitic evil that the Jewish people has experienced for a millennia, if not more. And now we have the opportunity, through coming together, through shows like this and other interactions, to unveil the truth, to come together as people, to have humanity as a unifying factor among us all. Because at the end of the day, any justice and peace loving person looking into Israel today should stand by Israel, because our interest is one. We desire to live in peace, not just here, but with our neighbors in the Middle East. Israel has continuously extended its hand in peace to the peoples of the region. As a diplomat, I had the honor to serve the state of Israel in Africa for many years. And working in Africa, there was a lot of focus on development. And as you know, Israel is a tiny, teeny country, but with a lot of agricultural and environmental challenges as an arid country. So Israel and Israelis have developed an incredible expertise in various fields. And I had the honor of hosting prominent Israeli experts as far as in the outskirts of Namibia, dealing with farms and agricultural issues, but these very experts were not able to travel 45 minutes by car from Jerusalem to Ramallah in the Judea and Samaria to assist Palestinians in this field, because they simply would not have them. In South Africa, in the city of Cape Town, it coped with terrible drought only a couple of years ago. There was no water in the city of Cape Town. The South African government prevented an Israeli delegation of experts whose goal was to come there and assist Cape Town in dealing with that crisis. So join me and join us in that call to unveil those hatred, those animosities, and the anti-Semitic veil that has been shielding so many eyes in recent times. And let us come together and join forces so that the light shall prevail, especially as we're having this program in the month of December, looking at Christmas and Hanukkah to come.
So I recently came back from 3 weeks in Europe, and I deliberately did not wear my Jewish star or my dog tag. How do you feel about being openly Jewish when you travel outside of Israel? Can you tell us what your experiences have been?
Well, first of all, I fully understand that, Robin. I mean, a lot of people who have been feeling under attack. And when you look into, by the way, the communities in Amsterdam, which had perpetrated the pogrom against the Jewish fans of that soccer game, or you look in Sweden, or in Britain, or in Germany, in many cases, these are immigrant communities who come from the Middle East and carry so much of their hatred with them, which is one of the most significant obstacles we see out there. So, as far as safety is concerned, I fully understand the situation. But I also got to say that it's interesting the perspective that the outside world sometimes has of Jews. When you look at me, for instance, Shahar Azani, my grandparents came to Israel from Yemen. They were part of the community that was rescued on the wings of eagles. That was the name of the airlift, even though, that was really a biblical term when you think about the opportunity of that community that arrives in Zion after 2,000 years in exile. And you look at me, at my face, and you look at the origin of over 60% of Israelis today. 60% originate from the Middle East. The Jewish communities who are all over the Middle East, with an incredible history of centuries in Iraq and Libya and Lebanon and Syria and Egypt, are no more. They have been ethnically cleansed. Over 850,000 people who have been ethnically cleansed outside of those Arab countries, and all of whom escaped back to Israel and built Israel to be what it is today. So when somebody looks at me, and I'll share this nice story with you and your viewers, I crossed, one of the border controls, and the ladies look at me and said, they look at my passport and they see Israeli, and they said, "Shucks, we lost a bet." And I asked them, I said, "What do you mean you lost a bet?" I said, "Sometimes we have this game, we try to guess where people are from." "Okay, so where did you think I was from?" I asked. They said, "Well, we don't know, maybe Mexico, Spain, Italy, Brazil. Why not Israel?" I asked. You know what they answered me? They said, "Oh, you seem to be too smiley to be an Israeli." So what is a perception of what is Jewish and what is Israeli? Let our humanity breach those walls. The fact that you felt that you need to be safe and not wear any Jewish symbol to protect yourself was probably very wise for your own safety, but it's a terrifying reality and a testament to the time we live at. We must not allow for such reality to continue, not just for the sake of ourselves, but for the sake of our children, which is why we're having this discussion. This is our commitment to future generations, that hate flourishes no more. And no longer can we just contend in having discussions in our own living rooms complaining about the situation, but come out to the public sphere and make a difference, just like you and I are doing today in speaking out to the larger West Hartford community. And I thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you for that insight, Jahar. It seems like sometimes the world is so far away and it's easy for us to ignore it. But since October 7th, even things have changed in our local community. We had an incident on LaSalle Road during an anti-Israel protest. One of the businesses were defaced and vandalized. That was really disturbing for our Jewish community and for the community as a whole.
Mm-hmm. And a friend of ours, a local merchant, was harassed in her West Hartford store and then online back in March. Local professors whom we know are encountering escalating anti-Semitism in their universities. So, Kerry, like you, I couldn't sit back in silence. As Shahar indicated, it's our job to bring this to awareness and to try and combat it. And having grown up here in West Hartford, I felt safe and accepted, despite some hints occasionally that all wasn't perfect. But things have sure changed since October 7th, and alas, not for the better. From your vantage point, looking at the situation here in the United States, how did you see our country prior to October 7th, and have your views changed since?
Well, first of all, I just want to relate to what you just said, Robin, about the local experiences. Kerry, you mentioned it as well. The fact that, local community has felt the ramifications of this. Why was that merchant targeted, if not because of being Jewish? And how come we're living the same reality that Europe had experienced a few decades ago? We must not allow this to come here and to reintroduce itself into our society. And in that, I just want to say this. There is a response to this. If you hear of such an incident, you go there and strengthen the people at that store. Go and shop there, shop online, or present yourself there. Extend a hand and just give a hug and say, "I am here for you. I heard what happened. That's unacceptable." Too many times we can tend to just, condemning this in behind closed doors, but it must reach the goal. We must reach those affected by it and strengthen them so that we are all strengthened as a community. The big problem has too much and too often been, especially since October 7th, and this is what I've always believed in as an eternal optimist. We have a very violent and vocal minority and too silent a majority. I know that the majority are decent people, peace loving, justice seeking individuals and societies who seek to live in peace side by side with their neighbors. And I also know that because we are all often too silent, we allow the minority to be all too vocal and dictate the tone. That can happen no more. And all of us, each and every one of us, has the key to change that by taking action, small action, ourselves to make a difference. And you were asking me about the US perspective. So we know that the United States has always had a special and honorable place in the hearts of many Israelis. Indeed, in the streets of Israel, on our very day of independence, you will often see flags of the United States of America. Just like now in the post October 7th world, when you see the pro Israel demonstrations and marches, you will see American flags, the equivalent of those American flags which are being torched by the other side. Because at the end of the day, Israel is in many ways, in its values and in its essence, an extension of the same values echoed by the United States of America. Even when we look at the history, even when we look at the history of the United States of America, it's quite evident that the founding fathers of these great nations have looked upon the experience of the Jewish people as an inspiration of the American experience. The decolonization, yes, the same language, the ability that the society to be democratic society and to control itself and not by a monarch is a Jewish value. I remember even learning that one of the proposals for the U.S. seal has been that of the Jewish people crossing the Red Sea with Moses on one side and Pharaoh chasing the Israelites on the other. Indeed, I was even astounded to learn that Zionism, the call for the Jews to go back to their ancestral homeland and go back home to live in Israel, has been echoed in the US House of Representatives back in 1891. That is 6 years before the first Zionist Congress. So the United States has always been a very special place for us Israelis. And we've always admired and been inspired by the United States of America. And we know that the American people in the heart of hearts are allies of the state of Israel, not just because of the beneficial relations, not just because together Israel and the US are making a better world, not just because Israel is an extension and provides safety and security for every American by holding off forces of evil and darkness that are abound in some parts of the Middle East. We know of the Iron Dome collaboration. We know of the laser system that's being developed against incoming missiles. We know of the incredible efforts made by some of Israel's advanced technology to save the lives of American servicemen and women out there who are injured in attacks through innovative solutions. The Israeli-American partnership runs deep and exceeds politics because it goes down to the core of our heritage and our Judeo-Christian tradition as nations, shining light upon this world, whether it's the shining city on the hill or the light unto the nations emanating from Jerusalem. And we shall continue to be so and do so even more strongly in spite of what we've seen since October 7th. Because October 7th has taught us that there are undercurrents in our societies today that try to undermine not just Israel, but also the United States of America. We have seen the burning of American flags. We have seen the defacing of American monuments. We know that those enemies who chant against Israel very much hate the very foundation of the United States of America. Together we stand, and together shall we be triumphant.
Thank you, Shahar. That actually leads me into my final question.
Final, Kerry, we just started. I just got warmed up. I'm coming out of my shell.
So much more to talk about. There is a famous line by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs that seems so appropriate right here. What starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews. Shahar, how would you respond to that? And also the final question, what gives you hope?
What starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews, and what starts with the Jewish state will not end with the Jewish state. This has been one of the major lessons of history. This has been one of the major lessons that we have seen in our lifetime. I am still a product of the mid-90s when Israelis were watching TV and Americans with great admiration with the signing of the Oslo Accords on the White House lawn, thinking we are ushering in a messianic time of peace in the Middle East, and shortly thereafter seeing Hamas, yes, the same vile, savage Hamas, introducing its new ingenuity on the streets of Israel, which was the suicide bombings against Israelis on buses, shopping malls, and coffee shops. And it didn't take long, Robin and Kerry, before the same suicide attacks came and appeared on the front stage of the free world, the Western world, in New York, in London, in Paris, in Lisbon, in Madrid. And we know that what starts with the Jews doesn't end with the Jews, including post October 7th. So to me, that lesson has never felt more real, but also more urgent in understanding that those lessons, all of the important lessons that we've learned since October 7th, including believe your enemies when they tell you who they are, these lessons must not and cannot remain on the shelf. These are not just lessons, these are calls to action, calls upon all of us to make a difference, to roll up our sleeves and do something to change that reality so that the US will learn the lesson that we Israelis have failed in learning by bringing the October 7th calamity on our heads because we did not believe our enemies when they told us who they were. And in spite of the harsh reality, and in spite of those challenges, I have never been more optimistic in my life. There has been too much bloodshedding in the Middle East, but if you look at the Middle East now, you will see that Israel is actually positioned as a great redeemer. First of all, Palestinians in Gaza, many of whom suffered under Hamas's rule, have a chance of building a life for themselves because Hamas can no longer govern Gaza. That gives me a glimmer of hope that we can engage in a re-education process with Palestinian society that hopefully years to come will lead the Palestinian people to a better future of living side by side with Israel. In Lebanon, we have seen a similar case when Israel defanged Iran's proxy Hezbollah and released Lebanon to gain its own sovereignty. And I do hope that the Lebanese people will take advantage of this opportunity and we will see a strong, independent and prosperous Lebanon away from the stranglehold of Hezbollah and the Islamic Republic of Iran, because that holds the promise of a better future, not just for Israel, but also for all of our neighbors in the Middle East and for the world. And I continue to believe that the power of 1 billion fireflies can outshine the sun by continuing the important work that you, Kerry and Robin, have been doing in your community, and for all of us around the world who are eager to make a difference, to continue making that difference with every move, with every day. And that is the optimism that carries me from one place to the other, which I will never give up as an Israeli and as an individual.
Wow. Shahar, once again, I can only thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us today and sharing these very important insights with both of us and our wider community. And thank you for giving us cause for hope in these dark days. We surely need it.
I can't thank you enough for rolling up your sleeves and making a difference, and I'm proud to be part of that team that makes a difference out there. So next time I'm in West Hartford, let me know where that merchant is, and I know I'm coming with my own shopping list. I want to wish all of you and all of the community Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Holidays, and may we see the continuation of the light wherever we are. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And a big thank you to WHCI for all your help in putting this program together. It really means a lot to us.